So here's what the front part of the drive shaft is doing. If I turn it, you can see our dial gauge moves up quite a bit, and then it goes down. So we've got, what is this gauge in? Is in 0.001 inch. So I've marked on the drive shaft where the high spot and the low spot are. So now let's compare that to the other side of the carrier bearing. Okay, I switched things around so that the low point on the front drive shaft matched up with, or the high point on the front matched up with the high point on the back. And you can see it's less now. Let's see, and that's okay. Let's see what movement we get now. It's there still. It always impresses me that I can leave this car sit for months at a time. It starts up like it was running yesterday. So the test drive did not go as planned, and a couple of days after that I was perusing eBay and I found someone who was selling a new old stock drive shaft for the 91 350 SDL. I was doing a little thinking about this, and I think this part might be the rarest, or at least one of the most rare series production 126 parts, because this was only used on 91 350 SDLs, of which there were maybe 1,000. It was a USA only model, so I guess I was fortunate to come across that. So we'll put this in the car and see how we do. Now obviously the shaft is in pieces. I would not have preferred that, but what we do have is on the shaft, it was marked, it's B, so this one is A. Now one question I have though is, of these two pieces, which is the front, which is the back? They have different part numbers in the EPC, but there is no marking on them. So, referring to the service manual, you can see that I think the difference is caused by the distance the centering bushing is driven in. So, got a, that would be these guys right here. Look, they've even still got this this little cap with factory grease on it yet. So I should be able to measure, sorry about the lighting here, this distance, and the one of them will be 2 millimeters longer. So I'm going to do that and we'll see what we get. Actually, with those caps removed, it's really easy to see. Here's the one, and here's the other. So that means the shorter one is the front. So this side goes in the transmission, and that's good because I would have assumed that B was at the front of the car, or that was the back of the car, not the front. So I would have put the shaft in backwards. So I'll get the car up on ramps, take the old shaft out, and try and put this one in.
Trying to beer here.
Trying to beer here.
Trying to beer here.
So original drive shaft is out. The new drive shaft I've aligned A to A, B to B. The piece with the sticker goes to the front. I double checked these measurements against the shaft that came out, and it's still the 350 is the same, I guess, as all the other 126 diesel models, where the front flange is shorter than the rear flange. And here's the bit of information that I really didn't have when I started this project. So if you look right here, you see there are these two marks, and then on the middle piece there is the mark right there, and then as we continue down, the mark on the end part of the drive shaft. So now we know on the 350 SDL drive shaft, the front part and the rear part go exactly in line. A note on installing the flex discs. You can see how the disc has a little stepped part. See on this other one that some of the spots, the three of the spots stick out one way, and then the other three stick out the other way. These pieces engage the yoke on each side, so it's important that the part that sticks out go against the yoke. And as you're assembling it, the washer goes against the flex disc. Okay, let me put this thing in the car. Let's see what we get. Okay, so I've got the new shaft threaded in. You'll note it's very close there on the transmission. This joint lines up. This joint is short, and that is way short. So I think what has happened here is that I have a 350 SD drive shaft and I have an SDL car. So we are now at 2 strikes. I guess we'll pick this up later. Yep. So if we look at the middle section going from the weld to the weld, we're about 10 inches. Let's go compare that to the old middle section. So now if we go from weld to weld on the old one, we're at 14.5. So it seems that I did in fact get an SD drive shaft, not an SDL. So that answers another question. 91 350 SDs also have a 3-piece drive shaft. Okay, a couple of days later we have a different, very long box. Let's see what's inside. See, yes, a freshly remanufactured 3-piece drive shaft. So now hopefully we can get this thing back on the road. Before I take this out of the box, I wanted to note a couple details. This was obviously actually rebalanced because these weights do not look like the ones Mercedes would use. Here's the mark on the front part of the drive shaft, dimple on the middle, and then at the rear, these two line up. So the front and rear sections line up exactly. Let me uncover the yokes. We'll see if those line up. Now that's interesting. The yokes do not line up. This one, flat side is up. Again, aligned, aligned, aligned. Then we have a single point. In fact, actually, they're not even exactly opposite. So that's interesting. But this is how I received it, so I am going to have to loosen those two nuts when I get everything centered in there. And actually, it's needed. You need to do that to fit these bushings over the ends of the yokes on the car. But I am not going to be separating these pieces. Okay, time to crawl under the car. Okay, that is now in there. I spun it around by hand and it looked nice and true. So we'll go ahead and start the car up, put it in gear, and see how it looks. There's the front bearing. You can see no movement whatsoever. And the rear, also no movement. So I think it's test drive time. All right, test drive completed. We've clicked a couple idiot lights along the way, but I'm happy to report that the car drives smoothly now. Or at least it did until the brakes warmed up, and I think I've got some dragging brakes now, probably from it sitting for over a year. So I'll have to go through those, but then once that's sorted out, the car should be able to get back on the road. In fact, over in that pile of junk, I've got some rebuilt front calipers for this. I'll have to source some rear ones, do them all. Immediately before I started working on the drive shaft, I replaced the hard and soft brake lines going to the rear, and I also have new soft brake lines at the front. So looks like there's hope for this car yet. I know this has been kind of a long video, so thanks for watching.